beautiful souls, and welcome back to another episode on the Mindful Living. I'm your host, Sana, and this is the podcast where we explore stories that awaken our hearts, deepen our awareness, and celebrate the healing power of presence. Now, listeners, today's episode, personally for me, that's what I feel, it touches on love, loss, and the invisible threads that bind us across dimensions. My guest is Beau Williams. He's the author of the profound memoir, 1 Year with My Soulmate. He's the founder of the Butterfly Effect Retreat and also host of the podcast Sunflower Signals. Now, listeners, Beau's journey is not just about grief. It's about the spiritual transformation that follows when love refuses to end, even after death. And in this episode, we sit in the quiet spaces of grief, explore what connection beyond the veil looks like, and ask what it really means to live mindfully, and even when your heart is broken open. So, with that, listeners, let's quickly get into this beautiful conversation. So, Bo, welcome to the show, and I'm really, really honored to have you here with us.
Thanks so much for having me, Sana. I'm excited to share my story with your listeners.
That's really beautiful, Bo. Okay. Let's talk about your memoir, 1 year with my soulmate. I would really love if you can share how exactly, I mean, what exactly drew you to pen down your memories? Because, first of all, grief can be really powerful emotion. It can really eat you up. But then, how you kind of, channelized everything and wrote down the memoir. I would love to know that journey. Our listeners would love to know that journey. So, if you can share both.
So it started with a breathwork session, and just kind of bring your listeners up to speed. Melanie committed suicide 1 year ago yesterday, and the book actually came out yesterday on the anniversary of her passing. It's available on Amazon internationally. If you search 1 year with my soulmate, you should be able to find it. You can also go to sunflowersignals.com and click on the link there to find it as well. So the first night that I stayed in my bedroom after Melanie had passed, and she went into my room while I was at work and ripped my shotgun out of the closet and shot herself in the chest with it. So it was a pretty, and I found her about an hour and a half later. So it was a really heavy experience for me, and it took me about 2 weeks before I was able to sleep in my room. And the first night that I slept in my room, that I was alone in my house, I did a breathwork meditation. Melanie was a breathwork therapist,
Yeah.
and or training to be a breathwork therapist, and she had taught me her practice, pranayama, which is one breath to the belly, a second breath to the chest, and then exhale. And it's repetitive for about anywhere from 7 minutes to 30 minutes, or potentially even longer for those that are a little bit more experienced. But after the end of the breath work, the kind of, which is almost like an exercise,
Mm-hmm.
I laid in meditation. And considering Melanie took her life in my room, I was curious if she was still there. So I asked, I said, "Mel, are you here?" And before I could even finish getting the words out of my mouth, my chakras lit up with a euphoric charge of electricity. And I realized that she was, not only was she there, but I could ask her yes or no questions. I'm not sure if you've ever seen anyone use the rods where they ask the yes or no questions.
Yes.
I could do that, and when the answer was a yes, I would get a response of electricity that charged through my entire body. And so I started, I said, "Do you want your story told? Do you want me to continue your breathwork journey?" And I kept getting yeses to those answers. I asked her if it was difficult to communicate like this. She said yes. I asked her if she wanted us to find a medium. She said yes. I asked her if there was different people in that were part of her life that she wanted to see, and she said yes to some, and I didn't get a response from others. And one of the guys that I got a yes from was a friend of hers from her breathwork community, And I ended up asking him if he knew any mediums, and he led us to a woman named Brandy in New York out of Brooklyn. And our first session with her, Brandy's got a chapter in the book. It's called The Reading with Brandy. And the Melanie wanting her story told started to come through really strong in that session. And I I have a background in writing. I've written 5
Mhm.
screenplays, one of which has been turned into a movie that was released internationally called Americans. And so that's when I started thinking about it. I had another medium that I worked with that asked me if I was a writer who wouldn't do a reading
Mhm.
until at least 1 year after someone has passed. But he asked me if I was a writer. I told him, yeah. He said, you should get a journal and write down everything that's about to happen to you. So that was actually about 30 seconds before I got on the phone with Brandy and scheduled my first reading. So I'd had a journal. I got a journal shortly after that, and I started writing down all the signs and synchronicities that were coming to me throughout the process. And I also wanted to tell the story of Melanie and me. So the book is a braided narrative that starts from the moment I lost her and then goes back to the moment that we met, and it's weaves together um, for 400 pages, and tells both the story of my healing journey as
Mhm.
well as the story of Melanie and I. And
Mhm.
it's been tough. There's times when I've wanted to give up, and every time I do, messages come through. There was a song called "The Photosynthesis of Healing"
Mhm.
by Emery Hall,
Mhm.
and I was ready to put down my pen and stop writing this book because I was frustrated. The family didn't want to tell the full story, and I didn't want to go against their wishes.
Mhm.
And I said, "Why? Well, if they don't want to tell it, why should I feel inclined to?" And I
Mhm.
kind of slammed my pen down, and that was the first time I was in Bali. It was the first time that the anger and frustration started to break through. And I mean, I think I wrote in my journal, and this is in the book, you shot yourself in my bedroom with my shotgun. That's the most selfish and messed up thing that anybody's ever done to me. And I slammed my pen down, and I was in such a bad place mentally. And this is only probably about a month after the accident. And I
Mhm.
went into my bedroom in Bali to do a breathwork session to calm myself. That was how I kept. Um, Whenever I would get into a bad place mentally, I used breathwork to bring myself back to being okay. And at the end of the breathwork session, I let the Spotify run after a 28-minute meditation. And the song that came through next was the Photosynthesis of Healing, which is spoken word by Emery Hall and her husband. I can't remember his name right now, but he plays music over the top. But I'd never heard the song before. But
Mhm.
it starts with what will become of my stories, gardens or graveyards. And the moment I heard that, I knew Melanie was speaking to me through the music, and that was the first song that kind of triggered the musical communication that continued to go on. And at any time that I felt like giving up, she would send me a new sign to encourage me to keep going.
Yeah, she wanted you to write it down. She
Yeah.
wanted. She wanted.
And part of me feels like my entire life was geared to write this memoir with the screenplays that I had written and the experience that I had as a writer and the tools that I developed as an event producer. Where now I'm self-publishing the book, and I'm the one that's in charge of the marketing campaign. In addition to writing, editing, I've done everything, and even the creative and the artwork, I've done everything myself. So um, but those are all tools I developed in my own life. So part of me feels like this was divinely orchestrated. That's a message that continues to come through, and that I've communicated in the book as well.
I mean, I have so many thoughts right now running in my mind, Bo, because at the same time, this is melancholic. Secondly, um, the worst chapters, the worst moments of your life, sometimes they write your story. In those moments, you realize that this is your purpose. And I wanted to ask something, Bo. So, before this phase of your life, Did you ever believe that um, there are spirits? I mean, through energy, you can communicate with your loved ones through, signs or the dowsing rods, as you mentioned. I mean, did you believe in that, or that particular moment, or those moments, when the closet door shut down, or you kind of felt that, electric charge running down your body? Did you ever believe into this, or you now believed, okay, yes, this was something I didn't believe, but now I strongly believe that Melanie is trying to communicate with me?
I've always been a believer in the idea that energy can neither be created nor destroyed.
Mhm.
So it has to go somewhere. And I've always been curious about reincarnation. I've got a screenplay that has some themes in reincarnation, the last script that I wrote.
Okay.
And so but as far as and I do have a ghost experience. I was, an ex-girlfriend of mine about 12 years ago. I was lying in bed
Uh-huh.
and I opened my eyes and I saw a long gray-haired ghost kind of hovering over me.
Okay.
And the moment that it saw that I noticed it, it went down through the floor and I rolled over and I grabbed her arm, and her arm went from body temperature warm to ice cold. I jumped, and this was about 4 o'clock in the morning. I jumped out of bed. I ran to the bedroom door. I opened the door, and I was at my mom's house in Colorado at the time for a reunion, a
Mhm.
college reunion. And my mom's dog was on all fours, staring up over my shoulder. And I
Mm.
splashed some water on my face. That was the only other experience that I ever had where, to this day, I mean, I'll never forget that. But I didn't. You only have one experience, right? And if you're not open to it, if you want to close that door, uh, at that point in time, I was able to close that door. Now, since this has happened, I haven't had any visual experiences. It's all been feeling for me. Some of the energy workers that I've dealt with, they can actually see
Mhm.
spirit. I can't see spirit, and I can hear them a little bit, especially when I'm in an astral state, when I'm in breath work. Sometimes right before I fall asleep during a breath work session, I
Okay.
start to get audible messages, or right when I wake up in the morning before I'm fully awake, I start to get audible messages. So I try and write those down in my journal when those come through.
Uh-huh.
But for me, it's a feeling. In technology has been used, and even this is going to be in the second book. At the end of Sunflower Signals, I have this spiritual acceleration that takes place, and messages start coming through in ways other than just the music that she was using, as well as me being able to ask the yes or no questions, and the signs and synchronicities out in, you know, in the world, as I'm riding my moped, or I'm sitting having breakfast, or I'm getting done with my workout at the gym. There was a lot of things that happened to me that
Mhm.
were pretty powerful that are all in the book. So I haven't had any visuals since I've been on this journey. Actually, I take that back. There's been 2 times. I woke up in the middle of the night,
Okay.
and the first time was in Bali, and I saw a pixelated, it's almost like a bunch of little diamonds in the shape of a being hovering over me when I was almost in that state of being between, um, sleep, like I said, but I can't remember what that's called. There's a specific name for it, but
Like to
I saw.
conscious. Let's just resume like semi-conscious.
Yeah, I was semi-conscious and I saw this being hovering over me. That was in Bali, but it didn't look human, and it scared me a little bit, and had a blank expression on its face, and kind of an oblong looking head, but it was just like a light pattern hovering above me. And then I had the same light pattern about, I'd say, 60 days later in Colorado, and that light pattern was Melanie. It was an outline of Melanie hovering over me. So I'm wondering if the first pattern that I saw was probably her,
Mhm.
and then from the other side, she had figured out how to make herself look like her the second time that it happened, because I didn't recognize it as her the first time. So it was a lot more comforting to me the second time that that happened. But other than those two experiences where I was kind of in a sleep paralysis state almost. That's the word I was looking for, or sleep paralysis. But that's the only 2 times that I've had visuals. The rest of the time, it's just been sensing and feeling energy in my body, and even I've had twitches have started to come through in my body, which is really tough for me to decipher, but they're coming in dots and dashes like Morse code.
Wow. No, I absolutely believe this. Yeah. My mother, and this is like 24 years back, when we lost our maternal grandfather. That was 1st February 2001. And I was like in, I guess, second or third grade. I was having my exams, annual exams, and my mother, she wasn't able to visit her father during his final days. But um after she got the news, the same night, she had this, not dream. I mean, she woke up in the morning at around 4 or 5, I guess, between 4 or 5, and the next morning she told us, my father, and then after a few years, she told me as well that she saw a white, kind of, it was an apparition, or just a, a figure, um of her father sitting on the sofa and just, looking at her and smiling before bidding final goodbye. That you couldn't come to see me, but I have come here to say goodbye. So I have had never a visual experience, but um I am super, sensitive to, kind of that energy, or that goosebumps kind of energy you feel when something or someone is there. But not a very strong experience I've had. But then it's really, really interesting to know, Bo, that you have had these experiences. So when Melanie gave you that signal that you go ahead and write down, share my story, share the benefits, the wonders of breath work, the work she did. Um, uh, did you talk with her family? I mean, did you try to communicate this, that Melanie is has, kind of given me the permission to write this down. She wants me to write it down, or you just went ahead with it, because it can be really, as you mentioned, you were really, really frustrated. You were really angry.
I did have a conversation with her family, and her mother, who kind of speaks for the entire family, told me, and this is in the book, we will decide what Melanie's story is going to be when you get back from Bali.
Okay.
And that was what initially had caused my frustration,
Mhm.
because I was getting messages that Melanie wanted her story shared. And that's when I wrote that journal entry that I was talking about earlier,
Mhm.
where your family doesn't want to share the story. So why should I feel inclined to? And I slammed the pen down and I went to the bedroom. And immediately afterward, the first line that came to me is, "What will become of my stories? Gardens or graveyards?" And so, right then in that moment, I made the decision that I was not going to let her death be for nothing. And for whatever reason, um, her family is meant to work through that pain in this life rather than to kind of just try to step around it, if that makes sense. And it was a tough decision. It's something that I battled with throughout the entire process.
Yes.
But like I said, the messages kept coming through for me to tell it. And I worked with 4 mediums during my journey, 3 of whom I had readings with. I had signs coming through that encouraged me to write it. Her breathwork teacher,
Mhm.
in my first session with him, because Melanie wanted me to go see her teacher when we were together, and I did. And
Yeah.
I told him that I'd kind of given up on my screenwriting journey, and he said, you've got powerful energy, Bo. You should lean into your gifts. So all the signs from the universe were pointing to the fact that I was supposed to write this story. and it's tough because you don't want to hurt people, but sometimes the only way through the pain is to walk through it. You can't get better without feeling the hurt, if that makes sense.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. That is such a beautiful kind of summary of this entire journey that you explained. Um, and I absolutely understand it. It must be really so difficult, kind of a dilemma, and that can really eat you from within. But then, as you said, you have to walk through it sometimes to let it go. But, Bo, in a world that often rushes past grief, um, it says that uh, you just got to move on, you just got to let it go. Um, your book slows us down. How has sharing Melanie's story shifted the way you view love now? Not just in spirit, but in your day to day human life now.
There's two things that I've learned in this journey,
Mhm.
and actually, I'm gonna tell two different concepts. One thing I've learned is that Earth is a school, and it's one of the toughest schools in the universe, if not the toughest school in the universe, where our souls are sent to learn and grow. And part of that is growing through pain and loss and grief.
Yeah.
And the second thing that I've learned in regard to that is the two things that we are meant to learn to do in order to graduate from Earth School
Yeah.
is everything we do needs to come from a place of love, and we need to live fearlessly. And once we learn how to do those two things, we evolve. Our souls evolve to the next level of enlightenment. We have the ability to come back down
Mhm.
um, to Earth School again, to if we need to help people in our soul family to graduate to the next level. So that for me, what I've learned is love is universal and it transcends time. And Melanie and I have done not this exact dance before, but we were married in a previous life, at least one that I know of,
Yeah.
and we will be together again. That's a message that's coming through, and it might not be as boyfriend or girlfriend. It could be as father and daughter. It could be a bunch of different ways. So
Yeah.
that I think let love and light lead the way in your life. And if you're going through grief, realize that that is a lesson that your soul is meant to learn. Rather than feeling sorry for yourself, ask yourself, what can I learn from this?
Exactly. Wow. Beautiful book. Beautiful. Beautiful. And yes, love is boundless, it's timeless, it travels across horizons, timelines, universes, galaxies, and whatever levels we can create in this human world. Um, that is beautiful. Um, and about your second book as well. Before we wrap up, I know that we have hit the time here, but your second book, which is Sunflower Signals, it seems to deepen this ongoing conversation between you and Melanie. So, what message does she keep reminding you of? One that you think our listeners might need to hear too, from the mindfulness perspective. Because breath work is one of the most effective channels, to embrace, to cultivate mindfulness.
I think that the big message that's coming through, and Melanie was big into yin and yang, and the big message that keeps coming through is that I need to follow the path of the light, and I'm here for a bigger purpose, and I'm meant to shine the light of love back out into the world. And so there's some um, people as well as patterns from my past that keep trying to grab hold of me. And I'm realizing, and the messages keep coming through, that those are lessons that I've failed previously that I need to let go of and move forward into making sure that I'm being led by love and by light. That's a message that continues to come through, and the tests keep coming. And it's interesting how you can feel negative forces trying to pull on you
Yeah.
when you're moving into a high vibrational space. And that more than anything else is what I would say the message that keeps coming through is the reminder that hey, you're on the right path. Keep going. Keep going. Keep picking. There was a story that my football coach in college told me about a guy named Ahab who was moving across the desert, and there was this spiritual man who told him, who said, "You know, you're going to see a bunch of stones on the way as you move across the desert. I want you to pick up as many of those stones as you can and put them on your pocket, and put them in your pocket, and eventually you're going to get to a river, and when you cross that river,
Mhm.
you're going to be really happy and you're going to be really sad." And so Ahab's moving across the desert and he's putting all these stones in his pocket, and it's getting harder and harder as he's running out of water, and the heat is beating down on him, and he starts to lighten his load, letting some of the stones go. And eventually he finally makes it to this river and he crosses the river.
Mhm.
And the moment that he gets across the river, he has a drink and he's starting to feel a lot better. Then he reaches into his pocket and he's got one or two stones in there. And those stones have turned into golden nuggets. And he's really excited about that. And then he's really sad because he realized how many he let go of. So that's a message that I was told when I was in college, that stuck with me for a long time. And it's funny, whenever I get sidetracked, I get an image in my featured photos on my phone of my football coach that shared that message with me. So pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting though. And I must say that, if Melanie is listening to um us, um, I mean she's really lucky that, she have had or she has someone, she has you to share that love and light with everyone through your writing, through your words. So thank you so much, Bo, for this beautiful, emotional conversation, for sharing not just your story but your soul with us. And definitely, it's this episode is going to be a reminder that some loves, they're too luminous to die. So thank you so much. And if our listeners would like to get a hold of your books and connect with you as well, what will be the best way to do that?
I think the best way to do that is sunflowersignals.com. That gives you access to all my socials. You can send me a direct message on Instagram. You can access the link to Amazon where you can buy the book. All you do is click on the link wherever you are in the world. It'll take you directly to that Amazon shop. And you can also sign up for my email address if you're interested in the retreat. The retreat is going to be in Bali, October 22nd through November 1st. And it's the healing routine that I went through that helped me to activate these gifts and to clear the trauma that I was um, struggling with after Melanie's loss. So, sunflowersignals.com, you can find everything you need there.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to have the links and the details, and as well the details about the retreat in the show notes for our listeners. And Bo, once again, thank you so much.
Thanks, Shauna. Thanks for having me.
And to all the beautiful, mindful listeners out there, if you have lost someone, or if you felt love shift dimensions, I hope this conversation reminds you that you are not alone. And the language of love is not bound by time, worlds, universes, galaxies, whatever you can imagine. So until next time, stay grounded, stay open, and keep living mindfully. This is your host, Sana, signing off with gratitude, light, and love. Thank you.